as soon as she touches me, I hear the Lord say to me, you're afraid of heights. Like just very vivid in my mind. And I said, I am. Yep. And he said, I want to take away that fear of heights. And my relationship with Christ has always been, he doesn't come in and drag you into healing. He doesn't drag you into belief. He invites. He's always inviting us. I think the whole Bible is just one giant invitation from God to like, hey, you could do this. We could be like this. And we have to figure out how to say yes to that. And so he said, I want to take away your fear of heights. And I said, okay. And he said, because you're not actually afraid of heights. And you're afraid of falling.
This episode is brought to you by Elevated Silence. As you guys know here at Shoot Me Straight, we are huge advocates of the Second Amendment and exercising those rights. And there's no better way to exercise those rights than going to the range with the best suppressor that you can buy, which is why Elevated Silence is the sponsor for this podcast. I've been using their product now for years. This is my favorite can here that I use on my Noveske rifle, and I have had no issues with it. And I get comments every time I go to the range or put on a course just how quiet this suppressor is. Another reason why I love Elevated Silence is they're constantly innovating their product, trying to make it better. They have these new 30 cal cans, which can handle any caliber up to 300 Norma. And they are now working on cans for EDC carry. And what I love most about this company is not only the man that stands behind the company, Jim Hood, who is a true patriot, but the fact that he is always trying to elevate your experience at the range, because nobody likes going to the range unsuppressed. So check out Elevated Silence and go to the range and shoot like a gentleman.
Welcome to Shoot Me Straight. Dave Fields here today, Eddie Gallagher. And
don't forget me.
Yeah, don't forget Eddie. And we have Jamie Winship on today, former police officer. His story's incredible. I've gotten little snippets along the way, and so I'm really excited to hear the full story of it. And then turn it to famous author and really now speaker, negotiator. What would you even classify yourself as?
I don't know. Yeah.
Untired of knots.
Yeah, untired of knots. That's exactly right. That's my whole role is I come into situations where it's knotted up, and my gift to the world is untying knots.
Untying it.
That's right.
I love it.
Yep.
All right, so we went over a little bit pre-show about this, but let's go with where you grew up in Washington area. Yeah,
I was born in Washington, D.C., in the city. Grew up in that area my whole life until I went to university. And I think, like, when I think back about, of course, everything's revisionist when you're looking back. It's like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And we lived in a subsidized housing project, and there weren't many people that looked like us in that project, and so it was incredibly violent and incredibly, in my mind, growing up there, it's just like, how is there this much hostility in the world? Like I'm like a passive invitee into this thing, and all of a sudden it's like I'm on a team and you don't get to pick a team. And my dad would say, in this life, you better learn how to fight because no one's going to help you. That was his whole view of life, because that's how he grew up, in a very similar military school since second grade. And so I think really what I just didn't understand why there was such anger and hostility all the time. Like there was nowhere to go away from it. Yeah. Just by virtue of how you looked or who your friends were.
It was a pretty diverse where you were at. As far as like, not just, obviously not with white people, but like every other ethnicity.
Yes.
Yeah, because I went to middle school in Washington Irving and then Lake Braddock. But that I remember back then, it was very, I think it was like 3% white where I went to school, and then it was either black, Muslim.
Right.
There was all sorts of different ethnicities, but it was all gangs.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So I went right after, went into seventh grade, right when the Rodney King, the riots, and that was like, I had moved back from Korea. So I lived in Korea.
Wow.
6th grade or 7th grade. Then I went to 8th grade back to Washington Irving, and I remember how being surprised how divisive and everything. Well, that was of course after the Rodney King thing, but like even going to school, it was like if you were white, stand by, like they were coming after you. And I remember I got in so many fights because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we, out of the city to Annandale, we lived in Annandale, which is in that area. But even when we basically moved, my dad moved us from one sort of not great housing complex to another. And actually the one in I took my sons to show them where I grew up one time, and they just sat there and said, "We're sorry that you had to live. We're sorry about that." But actually the one I remember in first grade, we suddenly moved because there was a homicide right out the front door of our apartment. And my dad was like, "Well, we can't stay in this." So that whole thing, I mean, obviously those things affect how you start to
how you view the world,
right?
Yeah.
And you start making truth statements, whether they're true or not. You're like, well, this is going to be a fight, and that's going to be a conflict. And
well, I think I think I can, like, the way I looked at everything from that is like, when are we going to fight?
Yeah.
Like there was no,
Right.
We're not talking this out. It was like, this is going to lead to a fist fight here in a second. And so you're always ready to go.
Right.
Because that's just the world. That's how it was.
Right. And I remember one time I have a brother that's a year older, and we went to a bus stop, and as soon as, public school, as soon as we get to the bus stop, it's like, we're going to get creamed at this bus stop. And so we decided, well, there's got to be another bus stop. So we would walk a mile to go to this other bus stop, and that just to keep the peace. And then my dad found out, and he drove us back to the first bus stop. Said, "Get out and stand at that bus stop." And he said, either you're going to get beat up and you'll survive, or they're going to kill you and then you don't have to worry about it, but you're not leaving this bus stop. And so, I mean, that's how he was. It's like, if you're not going to go to that bus stop, you're going to be doing this the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to run, you're going to run from everything.
Do you feel like he was doing that out of a love or like trying to protect you long term?
Yeah, I did. It's interesting. I never thought. I mean, he's very loving in the sense of he's like very proud of us. I mean, we watched him get in fights all over the place. Especially if someone disrespected his kids.
Yeah,
he's very protective because when he was in second grade, he got sent to military school and didn't know what was happening. He got put on a train with an officer. His parents said goodbye, and he never came back. He didn't even know what was occurring. And so when it dawned on him, like, this is like, they don't want me at home. This is the rest of my life. I'm going to be in military school. And when you go into a military school barracks as a second grader, certain people find you really quick. And he realized, okay, this is going to be a fight. So his whole thing was to protect us. I'm going to just teach you early how hard this is going to be, right? But he was always with us. I mean, he went to every game we ever played and all that kind of stuff. So I never doubted his love, for us, and he was very hard on us, for that reason, to make us tough. And he would do things to make us brave. The problem is it built fear into us. When you're trying to make a person brave, you're actually putting them in situations that produce fear. And so unless you have a way of processing the fear other than violence, it hurts you. And then on the other side of that, which was, and my dad was very, he was, didn't like the church or anything like that. My mom was very religious, very strict, no rock music, no movies, kind of disciplinarian.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was more damaging than get out of the bus stop and go, if you got to fight those kids and they beat you up, too bad. But and my dad would say, they'll get tired of beating you up. It's just a matter of time. But you're not going to leave.
And that's the truth. He's like, they will, yeah. They'll be like, this kid never stops coming back, so we're just going to leave him alone.
What's the point?
Yeah.
So, right. But what it did to me, both that style of dealing with stuff and my mom, like, your disappointment to God and all that is, it was like there was no way to win in this thing. There was no win. Yeah. And the whole thing was fear-based. All of it was fear-based.
Yeah.
So like, you might get in the fight and you might win the fight, but it's just going to be another fight somewhere. Like you can't escape it. And so is there a way is there a way, the years obviously later, we were talking with some Taliban guys in another country, and these Taliban guys had come, Taliban meaning just their students. It doesn't mean necessarily they're political or whatever, but they had this really deep experience with Jesus, these Taliban guys, and they were telling us about it. And I was asking them, like, where did that happen and how did that occur? And then at one point they said to us, in life, you can either go into things to try and beat people, or you can go in and try and win people. And they said the beating will never end. The trying to beat people will never end. And some people you can beat and some people you won't beat. He said, but you can probably always win a person. I never forgot that. I never forgot, because you get tired of fighting. I mean, it just gets tiring and exhausting. And so, but what if you could use all of that skill and power and everything to, like, why do you want to fight in the first place? What's provoking the fight? And when I was a cop in uniform, and I'd walk in and we hate your guts. Why? You never met me.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you hate?
Well, it's because you're being told to hate.
That's right.
A certain group or a certain, like, hey, these people are bad. Instead of looking at the individual themselves or as a human, like looking at each other as human beings, rather than just
It's the whole thing's dehumanized, right? The whole thing is dehumanized. And so maybe that's a little further down into the story, but the one thing I dealt with all the time, I felt like, was just constant fear that my dad was going to be mad at me for not doing whatever. God was mad at me because everyone was mad at everybody, and it just produced deep anxiety. I think, and that's where most people live. It's just in some level of fear that they're just trying to deal with all the time. So that's what influenced me a lot in my life. When I was 15, and I was out behind the school one night with some friends, and just this constant shame, this constant anxiety, and then someone, gave me here, take a drink of this. And I took a drink, and that shame was gone.
I relate with that.
And that was it. Then here's the answer. This is the way you deal with all that. So 15, that element came into my life. And obviously that felt like, wow, all I have to do is be able to manage this. If I can manage this, then I can do the whole thing.
Yeah. Then we find we can't manage it.
And then you realize, nope.
Yeah, it all comes back to the same thing eventually. Like, you can only suppress it so long with whatever, alcohol, drugs. I did the same thing. Yeah. I think when I was around 15, 16, the same type of, shame-based, fear-based, but you wouldn't know that. It just turns into anger or anxiety. And so the only way to suppress that. So like when I started drinking when I was like 15 or 16, it wasn't like, oh, let's go have some beers and have fun. I was like, I'm going to get as blacked out as I can get. And I'm going to drink more than everybody here, because it just makes everything disappear. Right. It makes me feel, but then, like you said, like that is definitely not the path to go down, but it when you're living like that, it seems like it's the answer at the time.
And it's like, do you appreciate the taste of it? And like, I don't
know.
care.
It's gross, but I like how it makes me feel though.
Let's just get past that to whatever, what it does, the impact it has on alleviating fear. Yeah.
That's a good foundation explanation of like you growing up and your like mindset. How did it lead you into police work and then?
Yeah, well, so I think looking back, the constant disorder is what I looked for. I was looking for order. Like, is there any? And so in my mind, that when police were around, it seemed like there was a kind of order. So I started looking at that vocation as like, if it's in disorder, these people can come in and bring some type of order, and I think that's what drew me to it. But then when I was in 8th grade. We weren't allowed to go to movies, so I decided, because my mom told us that God can't go in a movie theater, which I could never figure out. Me and my brother had long theological.
I guess he's not omnipresent.
That's right. We couldn't figure out. There was a lot of contradictions going on in our world. But so I wanted to go to a movie. I wanted to see what the big deal was, and so I went to a movie theater and went in and got in the back row of this movie, and already filled with shame. Shame is so powerful. I'm in there and I get in the back row, And the movie is 1973. The movie was Serpico with Al Pacino. Yeah. And I mean, it came on and it was R-rated, so God was really not there. And it just comes on, and I'd never seen anything like it. The music, the acting, the storyline, and it was, the story of this New York City police officer that wouldn't go with the corruption and that whole thing. And I just cried through the whole movie. And I didn't know why, but it was like this cry of like, oh my, that is like the most powerful, beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And it was so deep, and I just didn't know what it was. It was so overwhelmingly powerful to me and joyful in a way. And so I thought it might be God, but I didn't think it could be God, because God doesn't come into places like this. And I've been in church a lot, and that never happened in a church. But in this dark movie theater, it hits me. And it was so moving to me. I knew that I had to make some kind of decision. So I'm 14. And the culture in my mind was Independent Baptist Church. And Independent Baptist Church, if God talks to you in some way, you have to go forward. Because God can't do anything unless you go forward. I don't know if you know that about him or not, but if you don't go forward, he's like, well, you didn't come forward, so can't really do anything. So I went forward at the end of the movie. I walked all the way to the front of the theater. I walked up on the little stage there that they used to have, and I was looking at the projector up to the projection booth, and I just said, I want to be this. I want to be this. This is what I'm supposed to be. I didn't even think about doing police work. I wanted to be this, whatever that was.
So as you're telling this story, I can't help but think, like, because that was your first time going to a movie, right?
Yes.
Ever. So that alone isn't a massive experience, right? Especially if at 15 years old. What are you, 15?
14.
14, sorry, 14 years old, first time in a movie theater, because I think movies really do influence more than people really know. I mean, I don't know. Like my last profession, right? Navy SEAL, whatever. So many guys joined because of the movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen. And like that was, you talk to a lot of guys, they do podcasts now. They're like, I watched that movie and boom. So it's interesting to me, like, it was your first time going to a movie at 14, which is a whole experience. And then you're seeing a cop movie. I can only wonder, like, if you went and maybe saw a military movie or something else, you'd be like, that is what I want, because it's such like an impact on you.
Right.
It can feel, and it probably was like maybe God talking to you, so yeah, it just, as you were telling, I was just thinking that.
No, and today, currently, that's, if I could do anything right now, I would put out movies or television series that do this kind of thing because of the power it has in people. Yeah. But it's got to be real, right? It has to be real.
Yes.
The thing about Serpico that was so interesting was he wasn't trying to like be this noble. He just didn't want to participate in corruption. He just said, you guys do whatever you want. I'm just not going to do it. But he didn't understand that made him, they couldn't trust him then.
Yep.
And so he's just trying to be a good guy. And then, his own team sets it up so he gets shot in the face. And it was like gritty and
raw.
But it was like real.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, when you're doing kind of a hallmarky kind of movie, it doesn't ring with truth.
Well, that's my beef with like Christian movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They're all just so corny and cheesy, and it's like, who would watch this and then want to be a Christian?
Right.
It is, unless you're already a corny and cheesy person, right? Other than that, it's like, no, I don't want anything to do with this because it just seems nerdy to me. But then if you make a real raw movie, like I think if they actually made a movie out of the Bible, realistically, it would be the most gruesome, raw, gritty, like violent movie, but I think the Christian church or whatever is like, they don't want to put stuff out like that.
Sanitize it.
Yeah, they want to,
like a Game of Thrones type.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Game of Thrones is pretty, like, it's an awesome show and it's extreme. But I think it would be along that realm though of I
always get more out of, like, I see the gospel more in like a Game of Thrones than I would in,
well, because you have to have, obviously you have to have good, but then you also have to show evil and you have to show the bad, but it has to be the real evil, real bad, which is like nobody really wants to look at. Where they're like, well, in Christian movies. They don't want it like, that might be too harsh. It's like, no, you need to show the harsh of the harsh. Like, show the worst of the worst, so that way it uplifts the good of the good. Like it shows, the disparate or whatever comparison between the two. But if you make it nerfy and you make the bad like, oh well, yeah, it's like, well then there's no disparity there to where what am I choosing?
That's right. And that's why, when we're working in the Muslim world and Muslims are like, the Bible is corrupt. And then I'll say, well, like we're experts in the Quran, and there's nowhere in the Quran that calls the Bible corrupt. So what are you talking about? And what they mean is the stories in the Bible are so graphic. And like the line of Christ is through prostitution. I mean, that all that stuff, the guy gets off the ark and he's drunk the next day. Like they think no holy book would have those kind of stories in it. And we're like, yeah, but it's because it's true.
Yeah.
It's real life. It's not sanitized.
Yeah.
And so isn't that funny? That's Christians are similar. It's like, well, we don't want to really tell those real stories because they're non-Christian or some silly thing like that. But when I was a cop, like when I made detective, and we would on Thursday nights, our squad couldn't wait to go home and watch Hill Street Blues. Like that had just come out. It was like kind of the first good real police show.
Grew up watching that show,
and it was like it was like you're going to go home and watch what you just did all day, kind of thing. But it was so in that day realistic. And even then I thought, man, if there was a cop show that was about real police officers talking about what they really do and what they do on the job and off the job, and showed some of them coming to faith in that process, my whole squad would be watching it every Thursday. But they don't. To them, Christianity was this sanitized thing over here that the day they called them the day people. There's the day people and the night people. And these are all the day people, and they go to sleep at night, and they don't want to know what happens at night.
Yeah.
Like, so we can't. So, but if they saw a real story of a real person struggling with, you spend 10 hours breaking up family fights and then you go home and have one. Like that's the reality, right? Or you don't want to deal with it at home because you just dealt with it for 10 hours. Like that's the reality. And so if they could watch like, how do you deal with that? Or what do you do with that? They would all watch it.
Yeah.
Same with Muslims. If Muslims could watch a show where there were Muslim characters really encountering Christ in a real way, they would pass it around forever.
Yeah.
They're either the bad guy in a show or they're not in a show, from the Western perspective, they're not in anything. Nobody talks about that whole world. And so again, we learned working in the Muslim world that those guys are afraid of exactly the same things I'm afraid of. They have the same coping mechanisms that I'm using.
Well, yeah, because we're all human beings.
That's right.
Like that's the thing. There's no difference between us and them except for the belief and whatever they were raised to believe, and that's ingrained in them. And that's the after being over there for so long and fighting against those people, and whatever, killing them, and they're killing us, and you just come to realize you're like because you go over there with the belief like these people, they're bad and they just attacked our country, let's kill them all, But then once you're among them, at least for me, after a while, I'm like, dude, they're just human beings. Like they're just trying to survive on this planet the same way we are. Yep. And yeah, there are bad people, like just like there's bad people on our side. But at the end of the day, it's like they go through the same struggles that we do. They have the same feelings and emotions that we do. It's just we don't think about them that way. We kind of dehumanize them, just like they dehumanize us.
Yes, exactly right. And so back to when I left that movie theater, I was like, I want to be this, whatever that was, whatever. But so the police department was the symbol of or the metaphor of what I wanted to be. So you can only think in symbol and metaphor. So when you have an idea in your mind, so the police department represented to me the kind of life of solving problems and bringing order, and like that's what it looked like, even for this one guy that was trying to remain pure and all that in the messy world. And so I left there, I left that theater, and I said, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to be this identity. And I've never. That was 14. I'm 66. I've never ever wavered from that decision. It was the greatest deepest decision. I just didn't know God. I didn't understand God in that, but I knew that was God, but it wasn't the God I had heard about. He was bigger and different, and he could go places that I didn't think he would go, which it reassured me. It's like, I'm over here sinning in this theater, and he's the one that meets me there. Like, if that's true, that's the most incredible good news I've ever heard. Like, he comes and finds people in darkness. That's what he does. You don't have to come into the light. And so I just started
go up front.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And or I could say to my mom, I went to R-rated movie and met Jesus. I mean, that would be she couldn't reconcile those thoughts together.
Yeah.
But then when I would read the Gospels, like that is what he does. That is where he comes and finds people.
Yeah. You find some of his strongest people there too.
He found me in the back of a 4th time in rehab. He found you in a prison.
Yeah. I mean, and that's because if you think about it, if you grow up in the Christian faith or whatever faith, right, and you are automatically told to conform, like, and you do it because you believe in your parents or whatever, and there are certain people that stay on that path, and they're just like, okay, this is comfortable, and I'm just going to keep going to church every Sunday and doing, and living this sort of nerfy Christian life. And then there's other people who might be raised that way, but they break off, and they're like, I'm going to go pursue my own thing, which takes some will, determination, perseverance, like all that stuff to actually go off on your own. And now you might not be going down the right path, but at least it's your path and you're trying to forge it. But a lot of the times when you go down that path, and I'm speaking from just experience, you will hit a roadblock, and you will come to a point where God is like, you're not looking to me. You're looking to yourself constantly to, keep persevering down this path, and he will break you down at some point. If you don't have faith in him, then it's going to be a long, miserable road. But if you turn to him in that time, I think that's where he finds his strongest warriors, are the ones that break off and go do their own thing and then come back to realize, like, okay, I'm strong enough to like keep going forward, but I can be that much stronger with Jesus on my side.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I remember, just dealing with alcohol and being, I was pretty functionally good at it, at least in my mind. But people around me were like, you weren't that good at it. My wife was like, you're not that good at it.
Yeah.
I think you are. But I can remember times, because I worked a lot alone and even overseas, most of the stuff I did, I would go in first by myself to figure it out before I would bring anyone with me into a situation, just because you lose good people making that mistake too quick. And I would be by myself in these situations, and I felt like the same Christ that was sitting in the movie theater next to me that I didn't know was with me going, hey, let me know when you want to do this sober, because you're pretty good at this. At 20% of who you really are. Mm-hmm. Imagine what you could do if you were who you really are. And he, for years, and I would go, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want to do it that way.
Yeah.
And but I always knew he was there saying, you let me know. You let me know. Like the Israelites wandering around in the desert for 40 years. The place is right there. And he's like, you've been wandering around for 10 years now. Do you want to go in or not? No, we're still just going to wander around here 20 years. You want to go in until they just drop dead. Mm-hmm. But he never leaves them. He's like, let me know. You want to stop? You want to do this way? Yeah. Let me know. But he's not going to drag you.
No. Like you said, if you're not moving forward, then he's like, okay.
Yeah. And so then you get to a point wherever you are and wherever it is, and you're just like, I give up. All right, I'll try. Let's do it this way and see what happens. But it's funny. It's like my dad, one time to make us not afraid of heights, made us climb a lighthouse. Take us to this lighthouse, there's just these stairs that went straight up. And, we were more afraid of not doing it than of doing it, of what he would do to us. And so to overcome our fear of heights, he made me terrified of heights, because that you can't push a person into courage, and you can't beat them into courage. And so I'd always been terrified of heights after that. And we were in Kuwait, been through the police department, been overseas for a long time, and successful in those terms. But we were in Kuwait with these guys from Canada that we were working with and on this project in the Middle East. And we were trying to get the Kuwaitis involved with us. And one of my friends, this Canadian guy that I'd worked with in Indonesia, and he was on our team. And when we moved into Kuwait, he said, he goes, hey, before we dive into this project deep, I want this lady to come pray for us. I was like, really? And he said, yeah, no, she's really interesting. And so this lady comes in, and she's from India, and she's real short, and she comes in, and he said, she's going to pray in Hindi. Trust me, she's amazing. She's a Christ follower. So I'm standing there. My wife's standing next to me. And we were working this, probably the biggest deal we'd ever worked in the Middle East. We were really negotiating out this deal between Muslims and Israelis, and super interesting. And so she comes up to me, and she just puts her thumb on my forehead, and she prays in Hindi. She's praying in Hindi. I don't know what she's saying. As soon as she touches me, I hear. Now, had been a believer a long time. I came to Christ because of a nurse in a hospital when I was 17. But so as soon as she touches me, I hear the Lord say to me, "You're afraid of heights." You know, like just very vivid in my mind. And I said, "I am." Yep. And he said, "I want to take away that fear of heights." And my relationship with Christ has always been, he doesn't come in and drag you into healing. He doesn't drag you into belief. He invites. He's always inviting us. I think the whole Bible is just one giant invitation from God to like, hey, you could do this. We could be like this. And we have to figure out how to say yes to that. And so he said, I want to take away your fear of heights. And I said, okay. And he said, because you're not actually afraid of heights. And you're afraid of falling. And I said, that's interesting. And he said, so I want to take away your fear of falling. And I was like, okay. And he said, but I'm going to push you off a cliff to teach you not to be afraid of falling. But you have to say yes. I'm not going to push you off unless you say, push me off. So I looked at my wife and I said to her, I really feel like the Lord's saying to me he wants to push me off a cliff. And I said, I want to say yes, but do you promise to stay with me if I say yes?
Like, are we going to have parachutes on?
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be bad. And she said, I've been praying that he would push you off a cliff for 10 years. So she said, and so I said yes, and he did. And it was this whole deal we were working involved millions of dollars and our whole reputation, and the whole thing fell apart because two of our guys got bribed and bought out from our team and turned us in, basically betrayed us. They showed up on the other side, and we got arrested immediately. And oh my gosh, it was horrible. We lost millions of dollars. Then you probably know this, man. Your reputation is gone, and nobody will touch you. Everyone like, we don't know him. We don't have like that. And so it was a huge, huge fall. Lost everything. Lost all of it, and got arrested. Got deported. All this stuff.
That was out of Kuwait.
Yeah, but it wasn't Kuwait. It was another country that arrested us later on. But we were in Kuwait when the Lord's like, I'm going to push you off a cliff. Then we went back to where we were working and got arrested pretty quick because I didn't know two of our guys. And I don't know, when you work on a tight team, that team wasn't tight enough. And some guys on the team were like, do you trust everyone on this team? There's only 7 of us. Do you trust everyone on this team? Like, and I'm like, they're pretty vetted. And they're like, we're not asking you if they're vetted. We're asking you, do you trust them? And I was like, I mean, but I was too caught up in the deal. The deal was too big, and had never been done before. Tactically, had never been done before, and I wanted to. And I was too much of my identity was coming out of how well this thing was going, because we had people that would never negotiate in the total. We had them in a corner. They had to negotiate, and they didn't like it, and they were doing everything they could to get out of that corner, and they eventually got 2 of our guys to flip. They bribed them and they got them to flip, and I just didn't think that would happen. And so I just wasn't paying attention. You know, I really wasn't. I wasn't praying about it. I wasn't paying attention. I could see the end goal, and it was like, man, we're going to be famous for pulling this off. And it just totally fell apart and went the other direction. And so then that's when went into a year of rehab because I just lost everything. And what I discovered was, that when you fall, he catches you.
Did you immediately connect it to I'm gonna push you off a cliff? Like when it happened, were you like, okay, God, this is the cliff. This is the fear of falling.
I didn't know what it would be.
Yeah.
I knew that he wasn't joking around.
Yeah.
I knew that whatever he was going to do was going to be serious, and I was afraid of it. But I was like,
your identity and everything was too focused on that end goal.
Well, your ego, yeah, was.
Yeah.
So I was getting my identity
from to get that big deal.
Yeah, and I had good guys on my team that were trying to. Because our team was, guys from, we were a tight team, guys from different countries, and we had worked together in other operations, and I knew all but two. I didn't know the two guys that well, but they were vouched for, so I trusted them. And but I wasn't paying enough attention to them because I was too busy. Like, we're gonna get this, and the other guys on my team were like, I don't know about these two guys. I don't know about them. They were like that. I don't know where their loyalty is. I'm not sure it's to this. And so,
well, you ignore all the warning signs. I relate with that. You ignore the warning signs on the way up to it just because your identity and everything's so sucked into this deal. Yeah. Right.
And we got ruined, in a way. Of course, the Lord had a whole other thing going that I didn't even realize. We had inserted a young single girl into a situation. And when we got arrested and all, they didn't know about her. She was too embedded. They didn't know about her, and she turned out to be the superstar of the whole thing. So when we got booted, it's like they left her alone. They just didn't pay any attention to her. And I mean, I had dinner with her the other night. I haven't seen her in a long time. And because I don't know everything she's doing, but man, when she was telling me what she accomplished because we took all the attention, all of it this way, she went that way, and she did pretty much everything that we were thinking about doing. It's like the Lord it's never like out of control. That's my thing. See, I'm always like, this thing's out of control. And he's like, it's not. You're out of control. This is not out of control. You are. Like that. And so anyway, so we did the year in rehab and all of that. And that was 12 years ago. That very same scenario deal came up again 10 years later. Only this time I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's the Lord's like, we're going to do it again, but we're going to do it with the real you this time. So I tell people all the time, God doesn't waste time. He doesn't waste time, and nothing's lost. Yeah. Go get well, come back, we'll do it again. Yeah. We'll do it again. Because that's what he does. He restores the years the locusts have eaten away. And so when people are in, fail or whatever, whatever happens, I'm like, okay, all right, ask him for the years back. Ask him for it back. Let's do it again. Because he's not stuck in time. He's like, well, you blew your one shot. That isn't how he operates.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a saying in AA, the past is the key, not the lock.
Yes, that's right.
Like your past coming to fruition. I mean, it's one of your greatest assets.
That's right. The goal of the past is to move you forward in the present. So, but if the past locks you there, it's death. It's death if you can't get out of the past. But like Paul says in the scripture, he says, I remember what I formerly was. I'll never forget what I formerly was. But there's no condemnation there. The condemnation locks you there. Remembering, like, it's just like you train. You're like, yeah, we tried that. It didn't work. What can we do differently to make that thing work? That's the value of the past, right? I remember that. Remember what you thought that would work. It didn't work. So let's do something different now. Shift paradigms, change tactics, whatever. So when we got back in basically the same scenario, almost exactly the same scenario, I had a new young team with me this time, and I told them going in, this is pretty much a repeat of what happened last time, except I'm going to tell you what I did wrong last time. One is I had those guys backed in the corner and I wouldn't let up on them. And I pushed them till they got desperate to get out of the situation. I should have backed off of them. And so we're going to go into this pretty much the same scenario. This time, instead of trying to beat them, we're going to win them. We're going to win them. And you guys watch the difference because they knew my history, because I kept, as a case study, I kept going through this is what happened last time. This is what we did wrong last time. This is what we did right. This time we went into the negotiation process, and I had them right where there's nothing you guys can do but say yes to what we're getting ready to do. And I said, I backed off of them and I said, listen, we're only going to do this if this is what you guys really want. And it took away, because we had been banned from certain countries. All of that went away.
Well, it sounds like that kind of option, you also left the decision up to them. It's like,
that's right.
Which then gives them
a
false sense of empowerment. Yes. Like, oh, we can make the decision. Yes. So it makes it, especially dealing with Muslims, they want to feel like, hey, we're in charge.
Right.
And we're making the decisions. We came with the same, like, we used to go do, operations with them all the time. And then it got to a point where they were the lead and then we were there to advise. Yeah. But the problem is, if you advise them, like, hey, this is what you should do. You should be doing this and this. They're not going to do that unless you make it seem like their idea.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, yes, okay. And you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And then they'll go do it.
Yeah.
But
I think, and that's even kind of just like honoring them, right? It's a way of honoring. And, the scripture says, in as much as you can, honor all people. And even when, you may relate to this, when we went into Iraq, we had to live inside the population. So we didn't live on a base or anything. We lived inside the population. And so in order not to, last 1 week, and I went to a tribal leader and met with them and said, I need your permission to live in this community. And he said, you guys don't ask anybody for permission for anything. And I said, that's not how I was raised. I was raised to honor people, and I'm asking for your permission to live in this neighborhood, because if you give it to me, I'll feel like, there's some level of protection here. But if I'd force my way in here, we're going to be at war. Yeah. And he was really shocked by that. He was very shocked by that whole thing. And so there's just ways to do stuff where I think.
What years was this when you were living in Iraq?
2003 and 4.
Ooh. Okay, so right at you were there for the hotness. Ooh. Yeah. How was that, living amongst the populace while at the same time your own country is invading?
I don't know how to. You might know how that feels. I don't know how to explain that feeling to people. So we had our team was divided in two. I was team lead. We had a senior group and a brand new group that were pulled from other places. So we pulled a senior group in that was already fluent in the language and stuff. And then we had a younger team that we were training. In the senior group, they had a guy in their team, part of their group, that came from another location. He's really talented, really good at what he does, but he wanted to prove he was brave. He just had this thing. It was like, I want to go up there into this region. Like, we're not going into that. That's not our region. We're not going in there. That's not our job. And I would say to him, I need you to look me in the eye and tell me that you're not going to try and prove you're brave. We don't need that. That's the last thing we want. If we're going to die for something, we're going to die because we were invited to die. We're not going to die because we're stupid. So tell me, because he was the lead, because he was younger than the other ones, but he was the lead because he was the most experienced. And I said, tell me you're not going to. And he kept talking, I want to go into this one region. Like, we're not going in there. I mean, the military's not even in there. We're not going in there. Anyway, he took them in there, all killed. Whole group, one survivor out of them. And so then in our neighborhood, it's like you're saying, it's like, okay, now like they just killed our people. We're killing their people. And so like you're on the street where last night, that block was there and now it's gone this morning. The whole block is gone this morning. Now they dropped leaflets or something, but then you're interacting every day with people who had relatives on that block. And so and then they knew that, our people had been killed. And so they asked, our neighbors said, what are you going to do about the deaths of your people? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, in our culture, we would come and honor that so we did a funeral at our house the way they would hold a funeral. And they came, our neighbors came, and they came in our house, and we had a table with the pictures of all the people who were killed and a Bible, which is how they would do it with the Quran. And they came in and they lined up down the street and came in and cried and kissed the Bible and walked through and sat outside our house. They did all, and everyone was human for like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it was really powerful and beautiful. But so that's how I learned way back when I was a cop. That was always my question: is there a way I can come into a domestic dispute or even an arrest situation where some kind of redemption is possible? Like, I know what to do. You're trained in the academy. I know what to do. I don't have to think about it. I just do. You do what you're trained to do. Yeah. My question to God was, if I'm a follower of Christ, what does it add to my training what's the value of the Holy Spirit? If I'm trained to do these things, what's the mind of Christ, the Holy Spirit's role? When I don't need to pray about how to arrest a person. I don't need to pray about how to do certain things. I know how to do it. I'm trained to do it. My question was, is there another way to think about it?
Yeah. Like with the drug dealer when you were a cop.
Mm-hmm. So I would, after I got through probation, and earned the right to be on the squad and all that stuff, you got to, you can't just go in there and, I had to show respect and honor to my FTO and all my supervisors. And I wasn't there to get anybody in trouble. My question was, once I earned the right to like move around a little more freely and try stuff, what could I do that no one knew how to do? What could I bring that everyone just didn't already have? And again, for myself, Lord, I would say that guy right there is an excellent, excellent police officer. He's great. I mean, he's not a believer. What's the difference between me and him? That I don't drink? That it can't be it. He's fantastic at his job. What if he had the mind of Christ? What would he be doing differently on the job? I meant, not like he goes to church on Wednesday night. And so how would he? And so the thing in my mind was, we're on our car it says serve and protect, but we're trained to law enforce. Those are completely different philosophies. Mm-hmm. Jesus was a server and protector. The Pharisees were law enforcers. Law enforcers can only produce conflict. That's all. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. They come in, they see who broke the law or kept the law, and they just address it. Servers and protectors have the potential of transforming the whole thing. So I was like, no one in the academy taught me how to serve and protect. Nobody. That was never part of our training. Law enforcement was our training. So where do you learn how to serve and protect? Who teaches that process? And so I knew the only thing that really affected my life was Christ serving and protecting me. I was raised by a law enforcer. And I hated it, every part of it. Mm-hmm. So is being a Christian to join the law enforcers? And so on the street, I would, once I was free and all that stuff, and I wanted to know, okay, God, tell me how to serve and protect out here. Like, because I think that's a level above law enforcing. I think that's, if I was going to be the best cop, I would serve and protect. And that's kind of what was coming out of the movie Serpico.
Yeah.
It's like, not how do I make my, self-protect and self-promote. That's not the goal. How do I serve and protect these people? And how do they know that that's what I'm doing? And so I would just ask for wisdom in certain small cases, just small situations. Like, okay, we've been to this house 4 times breaking up this family fight.
Yeah.
Either someone's going to get killed eventually, or we're going to lock somebody up, and then they'll be back out. And we're just going to do the same old thing over and over and over. Is there a way to do it differently? And so we go in the situation, and I would ask God, can you give me an idea of what to do here differently than what I just already know how to do? Mm-hmm. So I was asking God to train me at a different level, mm-hmm. and see if it worked. Because if it didn't work, it didn't work. If I would have ideas and they worked, I would do it. If they didn't, I'd do what I was trained to do. Mm-hmm. Easy. And so then I would have these ideas, like say this, or think about this when you're talking to this person, or and I started trying it. And it was interesting what would happen. You could change the atmosphere of a situation by what you said.
Well, right? Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, like, especially with law enforcement. I mean, they have a hard enough job, right? They're dealing with stuff all day. But when you show up to a scene and you're already, like, your automatic response is like, okay, what happened here? All right, you broke this law, you broke this law, you broke this law. Like, and I don't blame them for having that train of thought a lot of the times, because they're so busy.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you end up, like, it sounds like you're showing up, it's like, okay, you broke this law. What why did you do, like, what were the circumstances before this? What led up to this? And like actually getting the human story from them rather than just being like, nope, you're done. And that's how people don't, they hate law enforcement a lot of times because they're like, you didn't even get my backstory or why this happened. It doesn't matter. You broke the law, you're going. And so I think, that is, I understand how that can change the dynamic completely.
We did an experiment with a Metropolitan Police Department, and we said, because they were I'm doing something today with a police department this afternoon. But we would say, like, when you make traffic stops, when you stop a person, just anyone, the commuter that's just trying to make a living for speeding or something, when you stop them, don't say, do you know how fast you were going? That's an accusatory statement that makes people fearful immediately and defensive. You're inviting them to lie. You're inviting them to fight. Say this, are you okay? Are you okay? Because you're going really fast. Like, are you okay? Are you is something going on in your life? You're not paying attention. Like, you talk to them like that. Watch the difference in their response. That's all. They're a human. They're speeding for a reason.
Yeah.
And not just dang, another stat for me, like kind of thing. And so that's all I would do. And then I would watch the response, because anytime you open your mouth to another person, you have the power to bless or curse. And both of them are super powerful.
Yeah.
Both are powerful. We're better at cursing. We're faster at the cursing part than we are at the blessing part. But we watched when we were working in Israel-Palestine situation, one of their most violent border crossings. There was a guy there, an American guy, who decided in this border crossing, let's just teach Palestinians who have to come through there every day, and they get searched and all that stuff, and then they start throwing rocks, and then the snipers come in, and it's a horrible situation. Common escalation of what happens. And so he said, let's take a group of Palestinians, let's work with them, introduce them to Christ, and then every time they go through that crossing, just bless everyone that they interact. Every single Israeli soldier that comes up to them, bless them. No matter what they tell you to do, no matter what they say to you, you bless them. And they started doing that because they would have to leave in the morning and wait. You wait 3 hours to get through, and then you got to come back and all that. Every time, get out of the car, down, lay them on the ground, search them, all that stuff. Because they're not allowed to speak Arabic there. They have to speak Hebrew in the crossing. So they're in Hebrew. They're going, I bless you, I bless you, I bless you, I bless you. Every time someone did anything to them. And we've been through there a lot. And it happens to us too. We get detained. We get all of that.
Bless you. It's got to be one of the most contentious spots in the world.
Every day, all day. And I mean, do you think they want to be there? They don't want these 18 and 19-year-old soldiers that have only ever lived in a kibbutz.
Yeah.
Now they're with a population they've never interacted with in their life. Yeah. Who they're taught is the worst. And all of a sudden, that's where you work every day, and it's tense, and it's hot or cold, and it was remarkable to see what happened in that crossing. It all started to calm down because usually it's a place of nothing but cursing.
Oh yeah,
back and forth, and the tension is just like this. And so it's like, you want to beat them, you want to win them. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to make it so this is the most peaceful crossing in the world, or are we just going to agree this is going to be violent all the time? Because we all have to agree it's going to be violent.
Yeah.
Right? And so they started doing that, and the effect on the soldiers was dramatic. They became less tense. I mean, they were still vigilant in what they had to do and everything, but they became less tense. They started talking to each other as human, and the violence just dropped at that site dramatically. And so he wrote a PhD on this topic. So then we started thinking about what if corrections officers are trained to bless? Because they're the ones with prisoners all day long. You bring a chaplain in, he's there, but that correction guy's there all day long. What's the interaction between these two?
Yeah.
Right?
Law enforcement.
Because these are animals and we're not, we're the zookeepers, and it's like that whole kind of thing. And so what if it just takes one side to start doing, we're here to bless you. I said one time, going into a negotiation between two very hostile groups in the Middle East, and one side said to me, we're never going to get out. We're going to be in war every day of our life for the rest of our lives. We already have been. we're never going to get out of that. I've been fighting my whole life. My son's already in the war. His son will be in the war, and we have no plan to stop it. It'll never stop. There's nothing we can ever do to get out of conflict. And I said, that's absolutely not true. It's absolutely a way out of it. And he said, how? I said, well, we're going to do this negotiation right now. When this person walks into this room, what are you going to say to this guy when he walks into the room? He said, I'm not even going to talk to him. I don't even want to talk to him. I'm like, we're going to be in war the rest of our lives. He said, what do you say? I said, let him come in here and you say to him this, what can we do to bless you and serve you? Say that to him and watch the conflict go out of this room. Because what's he going to fight about when you say that?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I can't say that. Why? Because they're going to try and take everything we have. And then what are you going to do from there? We're going to take as much. Like the war is, this is a waste of our time, this room. Because all we're doing is self-protecting and self-promoting all the parties.
Well, living in fear.
That's right. And so it'll only be conflict. But what if we said, we're here to take away your fear. Tell us what you're most afraid of. What are you afraid of? If someone would have said that to me when I was 15, I would have never needed alcohol. But no one ever said. Everything was about, you better be afraid. You better be afraid. Because even God's disappointed in you. Even the one that died for you is still pretty disappointed in you. There's no way out. And so when I was a police officer, I was like, okay, what can I do to bless? And sometimes to bless a person, you took them off the street. That's what you did to serve them. It doesn't negate that. It's like, dude, you are broken, and we're going to put you to where you can get well because you're going to die out here. We're going to kill you. And so
blessing them doesn't mean enabling them.
No. We know that.
Yeah.
It means get in rehab. We're not enabling you. Enabling you is ruining you.
Yeah.
Or justifying my anger. I as a police officer, I can take you out back here and do justice, but all I'm doing is enabling your rage and hatred. That's all I'm doing. I'm playing right into the game of the enemy.
Yeah. In rehab, we used to say, when I was running those sober living homes, we'd always say, we're disabling. We changed it, enabling to disabling you.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. So I learned, pretty well, like, why does this guy hate my guts? Because of what I represent in his life, whatever it is, white, uniform, whatever it is. So like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And so what Jesus did to me was he took away my fear. That's what he did. He took away my fear. Once I wasn't afraid, I could be really who I was. The fear makes me self-protect and self-promote, and I got to worry about what they think, and I get my identity from. And so once I realized that, then I would say, okay, what's this guy afraid of? And so then I would ask, I would think, what's he afraid of? He's afraid, I'm his enemy. I'm his enemy in every way. So where did he learn that? He learned that somewhere in his life. So I'm going to take away that lie. I'm going to take away the lie that gives him permission to react like this. And so then I just practice on little things. And then like you train in everything, I just started, okay, like try this. And then he would up the game. Okay, now try it here. Now try it here, like this. And I started to do more, risky things. And I got suspended at times for doing too risky things that didn't work. But that's how you learn, right? That's how you learn. And so the time that you mentioned, we were trying to get drugs out of this one neighborhood, and we're just not going to do it. It's never going to end. I mean, there's drugs in our prisons. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Whatever we're doing doesn't work. So that's one thing, is to say this doesn't work. This has not worked. It's never worked. It's not ever going to work. So can we do something different to win in the situation? And so I was asking God, like, what would you do to get drugs out of this neighborhood? What would you do? Kill everybody in the neighborhood? I doubt it. I mean, because even if you did that, they'll be back. Right? It'll come back. So it was like, I had this idea: find the highest level guy you can, and you empower him to get rid of the drugs. But why would he do it? He won't do it because he's afraid to not have them there because it's financial. Anyway, so I find this guy. We kind of knew who he was, and I just went to him and I said, "Look, I just want you. I want to invite you to my house for dinner." I was in uniform, and he goes, "I've never had a police officer invite me to their house for dinner." And I said, "I've never invited a drug dealer to my house for dinner, so this will be a new experience for both of us." And so he has to be willing to say yes, right? He has to be willing to say, and he did. And so he came. And so he was at our house, and I said to him, you you are a fantastic entrepreneur. You really are. So what I'm going to do is bless him.
Yeah.
But my goal is to get rid of the drugs because it's that. And so I said, you're a fantastic entrepreneur. You run a business that we can't even shut down. We're trying. We'll get you. We'll get you eventually. But we haven't been able to get you so far. That's how good you are. And you're brave because you're not afraid of going to jail, which you are going to do eventually because we're going to get you eventually. But, and you hire good people because we can't get any of them to turn you in. So you have great HR. You run a great business. You're super smart.
Yeah.
You don't use discipline. I said, so here's my question to you. Why don't you do it in the real world? Like, why do you do this in the shadows? Why don't you come out here in the real world and do this? Because you can do it. Why won't you? Because we're going to get you. It's just a matter of time. Our gang's bigger than your gang. We're going to get you, and you're going to pay for this for a long time. Why not come out and do it in the real world?
Yeah. What do you say?
I'm afraid. Of course. What? That I'll fail. I'm not smart enough. That's every single human would say those same things. And I said, you are smart enough. You can do it. And I want to help you do it. But we can't do this anymore. And he went in there and stopped the drugs because everyone that he worked with was afraid to do it in the real world. Mm-hmm. See? And so men love darkness more than the light. Why? Because they're scumbags? No, because they're afraid in the light that they'll be shamed, exposed, humiliated. That's what they're afraid of. And so like you're not. You can come out here and do this in the real, but you think you're stupid because we told you you're stupid. Mm-hmm. Because we told you, because you can't go to the best school. You can't. But look what you can do already.
Yeah.
So let's have a community that can help you do this. And so he went in there with that message. That's what Jesus does when he goes to like a town, like a Samaritan town where he can't go in because they won't let a Jew in. He talks to one Samaritan, walks them into the truth of who they are, and lets them go into the town. So the Taliban guys we were meeting with had 10,000 baptized followers of Christ in their tribe. Does anyone ever hear about them?
No.
Nope, because nobody wants to hear about them. And those those are three guys. There were two brothers and their cousin. And after our meeting, two of them got killed by other Muslims because
they converted.
They didn't convert, but because of their allegiance to Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a picture on my phone right now of a study group of 20 young Taliban guys that are meeting with an Australian guy. The gospel goes through all those places. We think it doesn't because of how we think about the world, like bad guys, good guys, like that kind of thing. And so it's like, what for me, my whole journey was, one is my job more important than these people? Is risking my job not worth these people? And so when I realized it's not, they're as important as my career, then I started. But the crazy thing was, I got promoted because of what I did. I mean, I went up like this because I was just doing something different that worked.
Yeah.
Right? And then I made detective, and then I made officer of the year and all of that stuff. But the whole time, I myself was drinking. So I was like playing this game. Like I tried, it could work, but man, then I'd be like, man, but what if I get fired for this one day, or this guy goes out and does something crazy? So I had my own fear and all of that going on, even though I was getting promoted, and the State Department calls me and they're like, what the heck are you doing? How are you doing this stuff? And they had my casework for 5 years in front of them, and they came to get me. I didn't apply. And they're like, what did you do here? Why did you take that guy to your house? How did you come up with the idea to take that guy to your house? Here's how it worked. And then they had all these, the good ones and the bad ones. And the guy kept saying to me, who trained you to do this? No, this is not a police academy training. Who trained you how to do this stuff? And I told him, I said, my journey is exactly what I'm telling you guys. And I just started asking God, can you give wisdom? Yes or no? If you do, how fast can you do it?
This episode is brought to you by the one and only Firecracker Farms. If you guys have been following me, you know from day one I've been a huge advocate of this product, not only because of its great flavor and the spice it adds to my food and for the health benefits, but because Alex, the owner, is just an incredible human being. And when I support a product, not only do I look at the product itself, I look at the person behind the product. Alex is a patriot. He supports veteran-owned organizations such as Op 300 and my nonprofit, the Pipe Hitter Foundation. So if you guys are looking for a great product, definitely go hit the link below on the sponsor link and go try out some. And if you like it, please like, tag, and do a post for them. All right. I appreciate your guys' support. Thank you, and God bless.
When you go into these negotiations, I get the concept of, man, bless them, expose the fear. But like, how do you disarm? I mean, I know of one that you just did not recently, and you had two opposite sides of the table that were very hostile. I mean, most of the ones you probably go into are super hostile.
They are.
And you got to untie that knot.
That's right.
How do you, like, what else do you do? Do you share your own stuff?
Yeah. So the very first thing I do is, and there's a lot of, there's really good training on negotiation tactics and stuff. But mostly for us, I just watched how Jesus dealt with hostile situations. And obviously, he laid down his life. Our thing was like, if Jesus invites you to give up your life, do it. But don't die because you're stupid or brave or cocky or something. Do it smart. I'm not an advocate of that. But so maybe the one you heard, even the one I'm going to do this afternoon, we're in our fourth meeting, so it's way different at this point. But our first two were rough. But I go in and I'll say, look, it's because I'm always the outsider coming in. And there's usually two parties, and I'm an outsider, and I'm typically
the mediator.
Yeah, and I'm typically, I'm viewed right away. Okay, you're white, you're Christian. They can Google my name. You're Christian. What all the assumptions they have that you have to work through because most of them are wrong, but they're just they're just profiling you.
Yeah.
And so I just come in and I'll say, look, I want you to know right away that I'm coming into this. And the biggest struggle for me right now is I'm afraid to be in this situation. I'm afraid in this situation. I'm not afraid of you or you. I'm afraid of that I'm going to be a disappointment, which is my lifelong fear, is that I'm a disappointment. I've been afraid of it my whole life. Yeah. So I just tell them right up, I'm afraid I'm being paid to be here. I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint the people that paid me to be here. I'm here to help you guys reconcile this situation because it's a disaster and it's going to keep happening every year. And I'm afraid that I'm going to be a disappointment and this is going to happen again. Yeah. And I want you to know that I'm afraid of being a disappointment. I learned that I was a disappointment from my mom. I learned it, and here's the scenario where I learned it in. So I want you to know I'm afraid. And I'm not afraid. I'm not like trembling. I'm afraid that I'm going to be a disappointment. And that fear is based in a lie. And the reason I'm here is because I don't let that fear decide what I do in the future. Oh. But I am aware of it, the lie. So I said, that's my situation. What I want to do before we do anything else here is to help get rid of the fear that's in this room right now. And so because all of us are dealing in fear, because the way I know that is because there's conflict, and fear always results in conflict. So what we're going to do together is I'm going to explain a couple of processes to you first, and then I'm warning you right now. I'm going to go around this room, and I want you, each one of you, to tell us, the room, what you're most afraid of in your life right now. Do you know what that does to the room? It puts them in absolute fear. The thought of them doing that puts them in absolute fear. So if we do this with special forces teams, anytime a bunch of cops, I'm like, you guys afraid of anything? Oh, man, okay, well, good. Let's say what we're most afraid of in our life. Fear grips the room because you got a truth tell.
Yeah.
And they don't want to they're afraid of what that means. They don't even know what it means because they think, what are you afraid of? They don't even know what that means. And so I explain these processes, and then I'll go around and say, see, here's what I'm afraid of, that I'm a disappointment. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of that I am, in fact, a disappointment, and I can't get free of disappointment. So either I have to live my life as a disappointment, or I've got to do everything I can to prove that I'm awesome. Both of them destroy me. All I want to know is, what are you afraid of? And when they start so I started with the most hostile guy first, usually, and he said, basically, he said, I'm afraid that I'm stupid.
Do you hear that one a lot?
Stupid, failure. Yeah.
I still have that fear. It's like, oh man,
imposter.
I'm dumb.
With you, it's true.
I knew it.
You set it up. Yeah, they're common. They're common. So that's why I tell, there's 5 or 6 things all humans say. It doesn't matter if they're a Muslim, atheist. We went up and worked in China with Uyghur Muslims. I mean, it doesn't matter. They'll say humans are humans are humans. Yeah. And so once a person, if I'm afraid I'm a failure, then okay, what are you going to do with that? Once you realize that you're a failure, what are you going to do with that? Yeah. And I'm a failure, accept it and just live like that, or I've got to spend my life proving I'm not. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Both are deadly. Both are fear-driven, and fear-driven anything results in conflict. Yeah. And so once you take away the fear, you can work through anything.
Well, and you're also, by having them verbalize what their fear is, you're making them vulnerable. So as soon as you start making everybody vulnerable, that's when a lot of the ego and everything starts to dissipate a little bit, because they're like, okay, you're like, if somebody on one side is being vulnerable and then on the complete opposite side, it's like now they have a commonality. It's like, okay, we both just exposed our weakness or whatever, both being vulnerable. So the tensions start to dissipate.
Right. They drop their fists. We call it. They drop their fists. And so when you say, the cool thing though is like, they'll say, I'm a failure, or they say pretty explicit things about themselves. I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud. Mm-hmm. Then I'll say to them, okay, so the fear is not the issue. The fear is just pointing to something you believe about yourself or God or other people that's false. That's what fear does. Fear is there to tell you that what you're going to believe or get ready to do is going to hurt you in some way. That's the value of fear. Mm-hmm. Whether it's protecting you from getting shot, or fear also protects you from believing things that aren't true. That's what people don't understand about fear. That fear is to warn you that what you believe about yourself is wrong. Or that what you believe about that guy over there is wrong, and we think I'm afraid of him. That's not the fear.
Like we misdirected. We think it's the fear's there because it's actually true.
Yes.
Instead, it's there.
It's a pointer. Fear is just a pointer, and we just stop at the fear. We're like, I gotta get rid of fear. No, don't get rid of the fear. Get rid of what the fear is pointing at, and the fear goes away immediately. Right. So I'm saying to these guys, okay, what are you afraid of? And they're saying, I'm afraid I'm a failure. I'm afraid I'm an imposter. Okay, and then I'll say, okay, so fear, humans are only born with 2 fears. You only have 2 innate fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Those will always be there, can't get rid of them. They're survival fears. All other fear is learned. Fear of money, all of it's learned. All other fear is learned, all of it. And so that means you can unlearn it. Mm-hmm. So what you're afraid of, unless it's falling off a cliff or me jumping up behind you and yelling at you, we can unlearn the fear. So the fear that you're a disappointment, you were taught that you're a disappointment. Mm-hmm. You weren't born that way. You were taught that you're stupid. You were taught that you're a failure. You were taught that you're a victim. None of that's true. So where did you learn it? That's when the group really breaks open. Mm. So they'll say things like, because your brain records it all. It's like, when's the first time, who told you that you were a failure or that you're stupid? Who said that you don't know how to talk well? Mm-hmm. Someone told you that because otherwise you wouldn't think it. And now you compare yourself and you're constantly in the tension of, I sound stupid or I'm a disappointment. So where did you learn it? And when the opposite group starts saying, well, yeah, when I was, I remember, when I was 7, my dad, started burning me with cigarettes when he was mad. These are terrorist guys. My dad started burning me with cigarettes when he was mad. Or I got sexually abused, when I was 13. Mm-hmm. I realized I'm powerless and alone in the world. Well, what's a powerless and alone person going to do in the world? Kill themselves, or you kill other people. Mm-hmm. You got to show you have power, right? Yep. So those you learn those, and those things motivated by fear result in conflict. Internal conflict first, and then external conflict next. Mm-hmm. So to get rid of the external conflict, we have to get rid of the internal conflict. Mm-hmm. That's why no peace negotiation in the history of humanity has ever worked. It never works. It never holds. Never. Not one single time. Because we're not dealing with the internal conflict. We're just trying to stop this fight out here. You can stop it for a while, but it's coming back.
Yeah, it'll come back.
Coming back. And so why won't we go to the source of the conflict, which is inside of you and inside of you? And people with internal conflict, I don't care what degree you have in peace negotiation, you're never going to solve it. Yeah. Because you can't give away what you don't have.
Now, there's some piece that's like, I feel like I relate with all those fears and all sorts of shames and all sorts. All sorts messed up. But there's a piece and there's a part of me that's like, well, that has been like my driver to, like, good things have come out of that, right? Like all your childhood and everything. It's like good things came out of it with your career and drove you that way. And is there a sense like, oh, I don't want to completely give that up because I still want that motivation or driver?
It's dissecting.
That's a good question.
It's dissecting the fear of being like, yeah, fear is a good motivator. Same, like all emotions can be used as good motivators to go push forward, and even sadness or whatever. It's like, but I think as you get older and you mature, if you don't look back and start dissecting and being like, okay, yes, this drove me to go forward, but it also kept me from going forward in these certain areas in my life. And that's where you have to start breaking apart and like, okay, yes, I did use this anger for good. I did use, it drove me, but on this part of my life, it held me back.
That's right.
So that's where you have to start like understanding that and being vulnerable and actually admitting like, okay, this held me back because I'm scared of this.
That's right.
And then once you're able to release that, and it's not, we're sitting here talking about it like it's an easy process.
No,
it's not. It's like you have to work through that. I mean, I've had to do that since I got out. There are certain motivators that made me very good at my job, but that doesn't work on the outside.
That's right.
And so I had to sit back and dissect like what made me good, but what also was a detriment.
Yes.
And is it a detriment to me on the outside now? Then I need to fix it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection and being introspective.
Yeah, that's right. It does. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of discipline. So one place we saw it was like, even there's some interesting studies on special forces people and what makes a successful high resiliency individual is what they call it, an HRI. What's a successful HRI? And all these lots of interesting studies done. And the 5 characteristics of a high resiliency individual they're not what people think. So one thing we learned was you can kind of train a kind of resiliency. Like you can make a person tough to be in a situation. But exactly like you're saying, that resiliency tends to be in a pretty narrow slot, and they're really good right there in that situation. But you put them over here, it doesn't transfer.
Yes.
So that it actually becomes dangerous over here, right? But can you have an HRI, a high resilience individual that's resilient in everything? And the difference, so what we figured out, and this is how we train, is a high resiliency person who's not whole is dangerous, actually. You can aim them in a certain direction where you can use them, but you can't use them everywhere. But a whole person...
That's the break glass in case of war. Yeah.
That's right. It's like you train me to fight and you put me in a place where there's no war.
Yeah. Stand by.
I'm going to start.
I'm going to look for something to
That's
fight.
right. That's right. Exactly right. That's right. But a whole person, a person who's whole is organically resilient. Mm-hmm. So instead of training for resilience, we train for wholeness, and they become resilient. So a high resiliency individual is a person. So these are the 5 characteristics, if I can remember. They pay attention to discriminatory detail. That means they're a person who can be in a situation and only pay attention to what's actually important, and they disregard the rest. That's a characteristic of a high resiliency individual. So that person that could be a police officer. It could be a person, on a mission. That's like, that's unimportant. This is here. We're paying attention to this. But it can also be a person in a conversation who's not distracted by unimportant things said in a conversation. Like, wait, what did you mean when you said that? Yeah. What did you mean when you said, like, see, now we've lost you. Like, you're not here anymore. Now what did that guy really mean when he said that? We don't want that. We're only paying attention to what matters.
Yeah.
And the rest we're going to let it go. That's 1. 2, they only operate in the present tense. They operate right here. They're not last year, next month. They're in the present tense. They have an open, flexible state of mind at all times. They can change. They're aware of emergent new meaning, and they can change paradigms rapidly. And 5, when they know they're going to fail, they move to joy. They move to joy. because joy in the singular cortex in the brain, joy is the jet fuel of creativity. So people who aren't operating in joy but are operating in anger or fear can do something, but they're not creative. They can't create new scenarios. They'll just get this thing done, whatever it is. And so those 5 characteristics of a high resiliency individual, if you read the Gospels, all 5 of those are what Jesus is teaching the disciples every single day. He's directly talking about all 5 of these. What do you do in a tough situation? You count it all joy. Why? Because it keeps you up in the creative part of your brain that can shift paradigms and move.
Well, it changes your perspective.
Right. It's like, we're going to die here. Maybe. But let's think. Let's stay up here and don't let the amygdala run your life. The fear, shame, guilt run your life. And so talking with professional athletes, it's like, what motivates you in the weight room, or coaches? Well, how are you motivating these players? A lot. It's fear-based. It's threat-based. We'll fire you if you don't, accomplish my squad. Then my sergeant, we're going to be the top felony arrest producing team. And if you're not, you find another team to be on. That's fear-based, threat-based production. And it works. It has a limited value. But what if joy was the motivator? That team goes off the charts in productivity, right? Like, don't go out and lock up everyone you can find. Get rid of crime in our city. We don't know how we got to create it. We got to think of a new way to do it. So in the study of good teams or good individuals, when they were put in a scenario where they realized they were going to fail, it energized them because they're like, oh man, we're going to have to think of a new way to do this.
Yeah.
And it moved them to joy. So then when we talk to professional athletes, it's like, what motivates you to play the game? They'll say, right, well, like on some teams, their identities are their salary signing bonuses. That's how they talk about each other. That's a fear-based, threat-based, tough situation to live in. But if I ask those same players, why did you start playing football when you were 8? Joy. What is it now? Fear. Do you love the game? No, because it's different. Because when one guy, he got drafted, he's a superstar in college, he got drafted right away. He said the day he got drafted, he's with his family, he gets announced, he goes, fear hit him because why? Because now I got to make that agent happy, I got to make them happy, I think they're paying this much money to have me, the whole thing shifts. Yeah. Right? And they'll play, but they know that if they don't perform, it's not joyful game anymore like that. Yeah. So, but what the scriptures are saying, and this is really what's true, if you move that player, that human back into joy, they play at a higher. They all know it. We're relaxed. Yeah. We take more risks. We play in a rhythm. We care about the other players. We move into fear. We start playing for ourselves. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've probably seen that on like an extreme level of that when you're get whatever the word is for a kinetic engagement or whatever. It's like the guys that get fear-based, like they lock up, limits them.
There's a mixture of it. So like there is a fear shame base that surrounds the community that I came from, where it's like, if you better perform, and you better be performing at 110%, which is impossible to do every day, but people strive to do that. Yeah. But it's out of fear of like, hey, if I don't do this, they're going to kick me out, right? And it's also the fear of not being an asset. Like I must make myself an asset, so I go. But I will say this too: we have and it's not just it's in Special Operations Community Creed. Is like we don't lose, we win every time. Which I think we don't. There's times that we don't win, but we are able to adapt an attitude where even if we go hit a target, whatever, and we sort of get our asses kicked a little bit, right? We might, some guys get shot or, might lose some dudes. We don't take the mentality of, oh, we lost. It's, no, here's what we did right, and here's some of the things that we did wrong, and we are just going to fix those on the next stop. And it is not going to stop us from continuing on and keep going out. That's right. Which I think it's a rare thing. If you look at other jobs or other people, like as soon as they hit failure or they don't win, they shut down.
That's right.
Where we refuse to shut down, and that's a good thing, but it can also be a detriment as well when you get out.
That's right.
So there's like I don't know if that answered your question, but there's a mixture of both, right?
Did you ever have times that you were in the middle of deployment and you're like, I love this, like, and you like operated at a higher level because you feel like you were in the zone?
Yes.
I mean, you really enjoyed it.
We were super busy, and we were just opping all the time. You're in heaven. You're like, this is exactly what I joined for. Like, I want to constantly stay busy. Where the only times where you can let fear or whatever you have creep in is when there's a lull, and then you're sitting twiddling your thumbs like, what am I doing here? Like, we should be working. Well, at least this is my own experience. This is how I would operate over there, where if I was a nightmare, like if we had a month off on deployment where nothing was going on, I was pacing, chewing the car, but that was all out of my own fear of, I'm not performing to the utmost right now, so I'm being a waste. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my family's time. I would then go into a negative spiral, and that is, and that's part of being resilient, is being, like you said, the whole concept, right? Can you be resilient in all things?
Right.
I was not, I was at a hard time being resilient in times of peace.
Yes.
In times of like, hey, we got nothing going on.
Right.
Yeah, you really had to learn that over the last.
Yeah, I mean, I was, it was like that when I was in, and then obviously when you get out and there's nothing but peace, then you're like, okay,
especially around here.
Yeah, like this is the most peaceful place in the country, this area, and you just have to learn to become resilient in those times too. Like, hey, it's okay, like to not be striving for a fight or looking for an enemy or looking for something to do. Like, you need to learn to be content.
Yeah.
And that is a part of resilience that I think a lot of us from our community have a hard time achieving.
That's right.
Is contentment and peace.
That's right. Because so much of your identity comes from that job.
That's what I was going to ask you with that's how it ties. I mean, it's so directly tied to identity, your fears.
That's right. So once a person, whoever they are, gets their identity from their vocation, you're trapped. You're trapped because you got to be in that vocation, and you got to be good at it probably. And so once you lose that vocation, you lose your identity. This is why, cops, lots of people, when they come out of that vocation, it's suicidal.
Yes.
Because there is like, we have no value. We have nothing. We don't have anything to do. Right. Yeah. But what really the danger of it is, what the belief deep down is, we have nothing to be. That's really the destructive part of that, is I have nothing to be without this vocation, which is 100% false. So like when I'm saying I want to be this person, if I tie that being to a vocation, I can only be who I am as long as that vocation lasts and I'm good at it. Once I lose it or I start to fail at it, I lose myself.
Yes.
And my FTO used to say to me, he was like the best human discipler, crazy Irish alcoholic I've ever met. But that guy, he knew people.
As we are.
he knew people. And he would say to me, like we get in a fight or something, and he would say at the end of the shift, he'd go, "Don't take that guy home with you. Don't take that guy home with you." And I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Don't take him home with you, because if you take him home with you, when you're sitting watching television with your wife, he's going to sit right between you and your wife. And when you get in bed at night, he's going to get right in bed between you and your wife, and he's going to talk to you nonstop. And one day you're going to shoot him."
Talking about that guy's your identity.
Yeah.
The guy becomes you, right? Because my identity is all tied in here. And so that was his lecture on forgiveness, really was what he meant. That's what Jesus is saying. Forgiveness means cancel the debt that's owed to you. Like, that's what it's not a warm fuzzy. It's like, you better cancel that debt right now, because that person will never leave you. If you don't, they'll be dead. They'll still be talking to you, right? And so forgiveness is the process of like, we can't take this home. We can't carry this, or what you did, what I did to that guy the rest of my life in my head. That's the whole beauty of forgiveness. So when you're in your vocation, the best, or before you go into vocation, is like, what's the discipline that keeps me from tying my identity to this vocation?
Yeah.
Right? That's wholeness. You're whole before the vocation. You don't get anything from the vocation. We tell our people all the time, you bring your identity into the room and you take it when you leave. You don't get it there and you don't lose it there. That gives you complete freedom to go into any room.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the hard thing when you're committed to a vocation, like I 100% was. It's like when you have a bad shift or a bad mission, I mean, it wrecks me. It was like, oh, I can't get it out of my head what we did wrong, what I did wrong. But it's like that's not your identity. Let me tell you, along those lines. So on the other side, so when I'm talking to a person who's counter to me or the enemy or whatever, they're operating in the same mentality I am. Right. And so if I'm not well, I can't help them in any way.
Yeah.
We're both just going to do this. So one thing we used to do with young Palestinian guys that were, good recruits for bad teams, we would get them because most of them, the ones that we would interact with, had already been in Israeli jails. Like they get rounded up around age 12 and just taken for a year. That's just normal process because you can have administrative detention for 1 year in Israel with no charge. So most of them have already been in a jail situation. So we'll start interacting with them and we'll take them out into the desert, like in a group of 10, out into the desert. Because even though they're urban, really, the desert still is sacred, kind of a mystical place to them, like the Bedouin mentality. So we'll take them out there. And we'll have it'll be me and maybe one other American guy, but then two Muslim guys who have been transformed by Christ. But these guys know these two guys because they were in the same jail, right? They know who these guys are. It has to be their own people talking to them, not us. But we can facilitate. And so we'll have two guys that we've been, friends with or working with for a while. We'll go out, take these younger guys, 18 to 25, out in the desert. And we'll sit out there around a campfire and let's talk about what we're afraid of. Let's just talk about what we're afraid of. And so I'll lead, and then the two other Palestinian guys, they'll go. And all we're doing is modeling for these young guys another way to think because they've never seen a model different than what they've just grown up in. And so a human can't do what they've never seen. They can't do what they've never seen modeled. So they have to see a model of something. You can't give them a book on it, right? Draw a pamphlet. They got to see it modeled. That's why entertainment TV is so important. And so just like I said, I'll say like, I'm from here. This is what I did. Here's what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm afraid of right now with you guys. I'm afraid that this is going to be a waste of time. That you're going to be disappointed in me. Blah, blah. And then the other guys go, and the young Muslims just stare like, "What are you doing?" Like, what are you? We would never say this kind of thing, and even among ourselves. Yeah, because you'll never tell the truth your whole life. Guess most of us go through our whole life and never, ever know what it means to tell the truth about anything.
Yeah.
It's not because we're liars. We don't know what the truth is. We just don't even know how to say it. And so we model it for them. And then we go, just best you can. It takes a lot of courage. Just, what are you afraid of? And they'll start to say, I'm afraid that I'm stupid. I'm afraid I'm illiterate. I'm afraid that Israel owns my future. I'm afraid that the United States owns my future, and there's nothing I can do about it. I am powerless and alone in the world, which is the root fear of most humans, is that they're in a situation where they're powerless and alone. That's their humans' deepest fears, to be powerless and alone in any situation. Like you go to break up a domestic dispute. I'm powerless and alone in this relationship. That's really that's why you drink. That's why because I can't get out of this nightmare. Yeah. That's what you're trying to get to. But I can go to a person who's, a communist Chinese and say, your deepest fear, you're powerless and alone. And I'll be right. And I can go to Algeria and talk to a Muslim. You're powerless and alone. I know, that's right. And I can go to an evangelical Christian here and go, you feel like you're powerless and alone. They all do. They're all the same. Yeah. We talk like we're different. We're not. Yeah. And so anyway, they'll go all the way around and they're truth telling. Confession. They're truth telling. No one ever does it. No one's ever going to do it with them. No politician does it. No preacher does it. Nobody does it. Yeah. Jesus does it. Jesus invites us into it.
Politicians do it. I mean, those guys, they model it really well.
Recovery places do it. That's why they're so powerful. It's like, that's a place where that can happen. So we go around like that. They've never seen any. So they say it. We're not going to tell anyone. we're the stray dogs of the Middle East. They'll say these things that they hear ever since they were born. They hear this stuff. Christians wish we were dead. Like, yeah, that's right.
They're taught to, and
they hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And so we just let them say it.
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, now here's the thing. And then the Muslim lead guys will say this. Look, they said, look, okay, here's what we're going to do. All of that, everything you just said is not true. It feels true. It sounds true. It looks true. It's not true. So we got to get rid of it. We have to have a place to get rid of these lies. So what we're going to do is we're going to write them down. Hand out paper. We're going to write them down, and we're going to burn them in that fire. The reason we're going to burn them in that fire is because God is insulted that you believe these things about yourself, because he never said anything about you that's like any of this. Mm-hmm. These are what people say. This is what you say. This is what they say. It's not what he says. But we got to get rid of him, and he wants them. So let's give him to him. And then we talk about Jesus, because the Quran talks about Jesus, and Jesus is the gift of God. So they burn them and burn them. Okay, now we're clear. Now this is clear. Now we're going to go out, and you guys go out into the desert, and you spend the night out in the desert, and you lay out there in the desert, and this is what you ask God. What do you say about me? Mm-hmm. What do you say about me? Not what does Israel say, Christians say, Hamas say. What do you say about me? Because everything they all say about me is killing me. Mm-hmm. And it's making me fight, and what do they say? What do you say? And so they go out in the desert at night, and they come back in the morning when the sun's coming up, and they sit around there, and we start inside. Like, here's what he says about me. I'm an untier of knots. Mm-hmm. That's what he says about me. Mm-hmm. He's not disappointed in me. He says, I'm an untier of knots. What do he say about you? And they go around, and they'll say things. It's just we've done this for years in every imaginable culture, in every imaginable profession. Mm-hmm. And humans are so beautiful. And when they start listening to God, and they say, none of them said I'm a Muslim. None of them said I'm a Palestinian. None of them said I'm gay, straight. They don't ever say anything like that. They say things like, I'm a healer of the city. They don't even know what it means. They're like, I'm a healer of the city. I'm a poet. Right? Mm. I'm a lover of the lost. That's what they say. When they go all the way around, they're all just staring at each other. And they're okay, now we'll use this guy, healer of the city. You're a healer of the city. What does that mean you need to be doing right now? Like fighting Israel? Saying you're stupid and can't go to a school? What does a healer of a city need to be doing right now? What vocation is made for a healer of a city? He's already been in jail. He's never passed any kind of school class in his life. Today, he has a master's degree in public health from the U.S., and he's back there leading healing of the city.
That's cool.
That's how dramatic it is. You want to take that guy out of a fight? Let him hear God say who he really is. He's out of the fight. Why is he going to fight anymore? Because he's not a victim of Israel. Israel doesn't control your future. We don't have a passport. We've never been out of our town. We're not allowed to go anywhere. Says who? Mm-hmm. The U.S., we're not in charge of you. We don't own you. We'll tell you that we do. We don't. Yeah. Israel, they don't. Nobody does. God does. Why don't you ask him what he wants and go? And this guy ends up getting a scholarship. I went to his graduation. It was unbelievable. And when he stood up at the graduation in the U.S., when he called together all the Muslim students in the university, and he gave his testimony of how he met Jesus out in the desert. Now, you can kill that guy, and you can fight him, and you can imprison him, or you can do that with him. You can beat him, or you can win him. And then he becomes an asset back. And he can take out more fighters than any of us could do. And so that's what we do with people, that all humans, if they'll participate, now some won't. Yeah.
Is it harder in American culture? There's more layers.
The more religious they are, the harder it is.
Oh. Well, the more that's been ingrained into them, the harder it is to break it. Yeah. And then I would imagine in the United States, it'd be harder to reach people just because of all the outside layers of what society is constantly like putting out, or this is what you should believe, this is what team you're on, this is what you should wear, this is blah, 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 all the crap that is put out in society. So you have to strip all that away.
That's right.
Completely. And I think it's harder to do that when there's so many incentives to be, on the way that you're going.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about it. So humans, we ended up, because there's so many conflicts in the world, and it's not like getting more peaceful, but it's like if there's way back when the State Department said, tell us what you're doing with people, and I told them, and they're like, oh my gosh, they're like, that doesn't make any sense, except that they saw the results. That's what gets them. Is like Jesus said, by the fruit they know you. Anybody can talk. But here's the result of what happened. So they said, can you do this in a different country? And I'm like, why would I not be able to do it in a different? Because they're different than us. That's the mentality. It's not true. They're not. But I said, if we go into the Balkans or we go into the Middle East or we go into the conflict between the Uyghur Muslims and the Chinese government and all that, or in the Sahrawi and the Sahara, if all those are different conflicts for different reasons, we'll never solve them. But if they're all the same conflict for the same reason, we can resolve them all, and they all are from one cause. Yeah. They're not. It's not because this was a Czech Republic and then these people came in 14. It's like that's not the problem.
That's what you were told to think.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we'll never resolve it. And it's 1,400 years of conflict and multi-generation. It is. We can solve it right now.
Yeah.
We can solve it right now. Or we can go to war. That's up to us, because humans can only make decisions out of either love or fear. Those are the only two motivators in the human heart of any decision. All day long, you can go, is this a fear-based decision or a love-based decision? Love, not like, oh, you're my best friend. It's like, it's other-focused. It's just other-focused. Or is it fear-based? Me-focused. Mm-hmm. Self-protect, self-promote. This one will eventually lead to conflict. It has to, because you're constantly separating from everyone. Mm-hmm. This one, you're trying to constantly connect with everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And so a majority of people will connect. Some people won't. They're too broken, fractured, crazy, whatever they are. It just takes a lot more work. So and all humans, their most basic instinct is to attach. They want to attach. When they go to attach, they might get hurt, and then that messes them up. Mm-hmm. But their initial thing is to attach, and then in the brain, they'll go to attach, and then the assessment center will go, wait a minute, what happened the last time we tried to attach? Every sixth of a second. What happened the last time? What happened when I tried to attach to this group? They killed my family. Okay, from now on, we're not doing that anymore. And that's where it'll stay unless it's overruled into the prefrontal cortex. It's like, maybe this is a different time, or maybe we do a different thing. That's high resiliency people. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that did happen last time. Can we stop that? Can we end that? And so that's when the thing that will stop the person is their fear.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's their fear going, no, last time these people.
Yeah.
So we can get past that fear to where did you learn those people?
So you'll enter into their identity via the door of fear,
totally,
their fears, and then changing the motivation to moving to finding their real identity. A lot of times, most guys probably don't know, at least for guys, maybe.
All people.
All people.
Yeah.
And they don't really know their true identity. And then finding that and then motivating it out of love.
That's right.
That's going to be the fuel.
Right. So if you come into a peace negotiation, for example, or anything, what you're doing is you're trying to get false identities to work together.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. And you can maybe get to a detente kind of thing, maybe. Or one time it seems side's broke and can't do it anymore and they just have to quit, or you killed them. But most of the time you're just going to get to a stalemate that'll last for a while, but sooner or later someone's going to come back up and start that fight again. And so what you're because those are false identities just trying to compensate for the situation. So when you first of all, we're going to take away fear so that we can get you to tell the truth. Okay, what we want, we need the real whole you in this negotiation. Yeah. Before we go any further, we need the real whole you in the situation. If we get the real whole you, the real whole you, the real whole you, the real whole me, even for 20 minutes, watch what we can do. Watch what we can accomplish. And you're not going to walk out of here losing anything. I promise you, none of us will. Because when the meeting becomes other focused, you can't lose. Because I'm not here to take anything from you, right? But we got to stop shooting at each other and we can't keep killing each other. Like that's got to go away. But what's the fight over?
Yeah.
Like what's it over? Right. And so when we go back to like when a person's like, well, in 1940, we're like, we don't care. We don't care. It doesn't matter. We're going to talk about right now. Now, today, what about this? Because this we'll deal with, but what we need right now is this. And if you're going to keep bringing the past as a weapon, then you're going to keep creating fear in the other person. Plus, you're using fear. It's your own fear projected at that person. And when you do it to them, they're going to self-protect and self-promote because you just aimed it at them. And we're never going to get anywhere. So if you went in, in all the political situations, if you're asking, if you go to Putin and go like, what are you after in Ukraine? It's the whole thing is the fear of scarcity. Everybody's fear of scarcity. There's not enough. There's not enough of what? Anything. So we need more oil. We're going to go get it. Why? Because who's going to give it to us? God. Ha ha ha. He's not going to. What is that? We're powerless and alone. We got to go make this thing work for ourselves. Well, when you have 5 countries doing that, you're going to have a war. No matter what you do, at some level, there's going to be a conflict. Espionage, whether it's open or not, they're going to be in conflict, and everyone's afraid of everybody else, right? So, like, we could develop a quantum supercomputer that could solve a lot of problems, but we won't work together on it. Why? Because we're afraid of everyone else having it before me.
Yeah.
Why? Because they'll take advantage of me.
Yeah.
So we can't work
and
together.
that is like the big fear, right?
Yeah.
Is because like I think even with what you're doing and your train of thought, and I completely agree with it. But I think at the end of the day, like even if you gathered everybody and are like, hey guys, this is what we're gonna do, and we're all gonna like get in touch with who we are and get over our fears and realize that we all are just the same person. The overarching thought between everybody will be somebody's going to fuck me over.
That's right.
This. Somebody's going to take my fear and use it against me.
Yeah.
And that's just the way of the world. So then it's hard to get people to actually succumb to like, hey, to what you're actually doing.
Right. So the overarching fear shuts it all down.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is almost impossible for it to succeed if it wasn't for God, I guess.
That's right. But here's what's the interesting thing about what. So ultimately, because that's true, everyone will come. Yeah, I know. I wish it was that way. I really do wish it was that way. But man, these guys, I'm telling you, they'll look like they're nice, but they're not. And the fear shuts it down.
Yeah.
Right. So then I keep coming back to the person like, okay, well, so what happens? So what happens if they are mean and they lie? What happened? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? I'm afraid of what? What are you afraid of? Let's say they're all mean and God's not going to protect you. What are you afraid of? What are they going to do? They'll kill me. So you're afraid to die. Really, isn't that it? You're afraid to die. That's really what we're all afraid of. Die, not just die like physically, but die in shame, die in rejection, die in failure. We're so terrified of death. So what we need is some
death. Well, our own death, or maybe a death of a family member.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
Yeah.
Death is the thing we're most afraid of. Right. And so what we need then is some kind of good news that takes away the fear of death. And we have it. So Hebrews chapter 2 says, and Jesus came in order to take away the power of death from the one who holds the power of death, Satan, and to relieve us of the burden of the fear of death. That's what Jesus came to do. He took away death and the fear of death. So that is the hardest thing to believe about the whole message of Jesus is the disciples are hidden in a room, locked in a room because they're afraid of the Jews. What are they afraid of the Jews are going to do? Kill them. Here comes Jesus, who they just killed, walking into the room like, guess what? You can't die. And neither can your kids, and nobody can die. So don't be afraid. Why are you locked in a room? Because they can kill us. They killed me. Here I am. Yeah. Look, here I am. Here I am. There's no death. There's only resurrection. But man, we don't believe that. For us, death is you lost. You failed. You lost. Yeah. And there's that fear. There it is again.
But even Jesus was scared.
Yes.
Before he's nailed to the cross.
Right.
And he talked to God and be like, is there like in some fashion, like there's got to be another way.
Right.
So even he's not above, but he overcame that and was like trusted in God and was like, yeah, I'm not I'm not scared to die now. Like, this is in your plan. But his initial reaction or leading up to it was like the same thing we all have, which is like, I don't want to die. Right.
Yeah. And so that's ultimate. I'm just agreeing with you. That's ultimately our biggest fear is like, what if we lose our country? What if they win?
Yeah.
Then what happens to us? And then like, what do you think happens to you? What do you think happened? Like, and so then what we have to do is go into a hypothetical scenario of horror.
Yeah. And that's like even today's environment, like with all of the, you can go on social media or news and it's all like, oh, fear. It's all fear-based, right?
Right.
And you'll have arguments or not argument, conversations with people. And that is like, oh, well, if we let this group do this, then it's going to, and then if you ask them like, well, what would it do? Half the people wouldn't even be able to like verbalize what their fear is. They're just like, well, it's what I was told on CNN. And they're like, well, what would actually happen?
That's
like,
right.
You can't even think of it because you are being told what to think.
Right.
Your fear is out of whatever some guy on a box or your phone is telling you.
That's right.
But you can't verbalize what will actually happen. Yeah.
Right. So the verse, the scripture says, the person is kept in perfect peace whose mind and imagination is fixed on God because he trusts in God. So if I'm in a scenario and my brain can go either forward in real, true imagination, which is imaging forth the unseen true, which the imagination is for and beautiful, or I can go into fantasy world, which is destructive and dark. I can pick which way I'm going to go in this thinking process. You can choose. Like if they come and take us over, I can go into fantasy world, which will produce in me deep fear.
Yeah.
Or I can say, God, give me a picture, give me a sense of what happens in this direction. He is kept in perfect peace. So Jesus in the garden, is Hebrews chapter 5 when he's in the garden. If you want to read the description of this, it's a beautiful passage. It says it's more than he sweated blood. It's more than that. It says he with loud crying and tears, he called out to the one who was able to save him up and out of death because he was horrified at being separated from the bright presence of the glory of God. What Jesus was afraid of in his humanity was that going to the cross with the sin of the world stacked on top of him was going to break his relationship with God, that God was going to actually separate from him, which he couldn't even imagine. And that horrified him, the thought. So it wasn't dying.
Yeah.
It was being away from the presence of the glory of God. So when that's in his because in his limited, human understanding of what was going to happen, that seemed like pretty real. If I'm going to take the sin of the world on me, what's a holy God going to do? He's going to turn away from me. When he's on the cross, because his two greatest prayers, personal ones are, not my will, thy will be done. That was the win. When he prayed that, the enemy's like, well, we just lost him. Because now he's not going to self-protect.
Yeah.
If he self-protected, we would get him. But he's not going to do it. Not my will, your will be done. Boom, we lost. Enemy's out. Now, though, the challenge is for Christ is Satan's not going to do anything here. It's what's the sin of the world on me going to do? It's like Satan lost. He's losing this one. Because Paul says, if the demonic world knew what would happen when Jesus went to the cross, they would have never let it happen. They would have prevented it. Instead of being like, yeah, we're all for it. That's Satan always overplays his hand. Jesus gets on the cross and he starts quoting Psalm 22, right? That, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because that was his fear, that he would be forsaken. But in the synagogue, when you are reading a passage of scripture, you just read the first line because there's no chapters. So you read the first line of a section and you know to read that section. So when Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me? A Jewish person would take the Torah and they would unroll it and they would go to that line, which we have as Psalm 22. They'd read that line and they would read the whole passage. They wouldn't never stop in that statement. My God, why have you forsaken me? And they would go all the way through. And that passage, which Jesus knew they would do, ends with, no matter what happens, you will never leave me nor forsake me.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, you will never separate yourself from me. And then he says his other great prayer, into your hands I commit my spirit. He knows that death is never, the sin of the world, even that can't separate it from
I've
God.
always thought that. I always thought, like when he was on the cross and quoted that, because the traditional understanding is like, oh, then God turned his back on him and all that stuff. And I'm like, he almost like I'm like, okay, maybe, but it doesn't seem like that could even be possible.
That's right.
But then when I see Psalm 22, I'm like, okay, he's like, I mean, even again going, I mean, because it describes the cross in Psalm 22, and it's like, I'm him. I'm in it. Like,
and even in that, he is with me. And that's why Jesus can say, and I think this is a prayer for us to be praying, both of those, not my will, but thy will be done. But I pray all the time, into your hands I commit my spirit. Like, I'm not afraid of what's coming, because whatever comes, I'm going to end up is with you. Mm-hmm. Not like I am now. It's not going to change, you know? Yeah. And so when Jesus prays that prayer, he's saying, in the depths of the deepest, darkest sin of all humanity, you're right there to receive me. It's the most beautiful, secure prayer of that. Like, he is never going to leave you. He'll go in a movie theater with you. Right? He will. And he can't go in because it's sinful. He came to seek and to save the lost. He came to serve, not to be served. Like those beautiful passages. And so no matter what we're doing, so like, when we lived in Iraq, we had 2 of our sons were living with us. And they, in the height of that Sadr City nightmare and Al-Sadr and all those crazy, we lived down in there, and our 2 sons, 11th grade and 8th grade, there was the school that hadn't been looted, that was in a secret location across the city, and every day they would get in a car with an Iraqi driver and drive across the city to go to that school. We couldn't go with them because we attracted attention, and we didn't have we didn't have cell phones.
You just had to trust that. Yeah, like they make it there and back.
And they would go every day, and there's the car bombings and all that stuff going on, and you just had to like. And so you do that they would 45 minutes, and they'd get there and they'd use this satellite phone, and like, we made it. And then back home, and one of them would sit in the front seat, like because they're darker complected like my wife. And so one would sit in the front seat with the driver, and one in the back, like they were just a family. And no protection, no nothing, going back and forth across that city every day, day after day. And it started to like really affect me. Yeah. It's like, what are the odds? I'm like, God can protect them for a certain amount of time.
I feel like you're rolling dice every day.
But he can't do it every day. And if you keep putting your kids in that situation, and my imagination started to shift to like, wow, what could happen to them? And then I have a Jewish father-in-law who thinks I'm insane because I took my kids to live in Iraq and all this. And he's going to, I'm going to be ashamed in front of him if something happens to those kids. And he's not a believer, and I'm going to look like an idiot, and I'm a disappointment at the deepest level. And so I'm like, so one day one of the guys on my team, American guy, he's like, are you okay? Because he said, I'm noticing something in you. And I'm like, what? And he goes, you're starting to not talk to our Iraqi coworkers. Because I'm starting to do this with them, because fear starting to become how I'm thinking about things, and it's causing me to separate from and dislike them.
Yeah,
because you can't love what you fear. Can't love what you fear, and so I it was really affecting me how I related to my own friends, my own coworkers, and I was going inward and shutting down, and so I got up one night. And I just said, God, I went out on our roof, and we lived in between. There was you could see the sword of Saddam off in the distance where the main green zone was. You could see it way over there. But right here was a big Sunni mosque, and right over here was a big Shia mosque, and they were going off all the time. And so it was like 3:00 in the morning, and I went out on the roof, and I was just in between these 2 mosques, in the Saddam's hands over there. It's like the enemy, and like my kids are just driving around in it every day. And God, how long can you hold back the evil?
Yeah,
like sooner or later these things are going to break down. And I said to God, I'm so afraid. I'm just so afraid right now. And what I'm afraid of is that you I'm not afraid for my kids to die. I am afraid of that. But I'm really afraid of is that you are either unable or unwilling to protect them every day. One or the other. Because am I good enough to get you to 100% protect them every day? Am I worthy of that? Or is it just beyond your power to do it here? Maybe you could do it in Tennessee, but I don't know if you can do it here. Not with these bad guys all the time. And so I'm truth-telling to God. My fear is that you are either unable or unwilling, and I'm not sure is worse, to protect them every day. Tell me the truth, because I can't make
You're just having an honest conversation with God.
I can't make myself believe this stuff. And and then I had this crazy, like I looked over, I was yelling, and I looked over I was up on the roof of our house, and we don't have any security or anything per se, and standing on the corner of our house was a soldier, an American. It looked like American, U.S. Right on the left corner of our house, standing there looking out towards the Shia mosque. And I was like, who in the world? And then over here is another one looking at the Sunni mosque that direction, and two behind me, like on the four corners of our roof. And I just looked at them, and my sense from God, he said to me, don't tell me what's true. Ask me what's true. You don't know what's true. Ask me what's true. This is true. Stop being afraid of what's not true. And that was it. And I went and got in bed, and
you feel relief, like
because it was like he showed me the reality of the situation. Most of what we're dealing with is not true.
It's almost like Elijah or whatever.
Right, kind of, yeah. And so instead of asking God, tell me what's true, because this is what looks true to me or seems true to me, and it's producing in me, I don't even like these people anymore. Yeah. Like, I know that's not him doing that, but I can't make myself believe stuff, right? Yeah. Either you have to convince me or I can't do it. The beauty is he does. And so the next morning I got up, and the kid, they were getting ready to get in the car. And I asked the 11th grader, who's the FBI agent now in the Middle East, interestingly. That life formed him into who he is. Yeah. It didn't hurt him.
No,
it's like who he is. And my oldest son lives in Saudi Arabia.
Became a product of his environment.
That's right. And not afraid of it, but to stay in it. And I asked him, I said, are you afraid here? Because they were the only two American teenagers in the country. I said, are you afraid here? And he said, are you afraid here? And I said, no, actually I'm not. And he goes, then why would I be afraid? And that just reminded me, I could have taught him to be afraid.
Yeah.
Or I could teach him to not be afraid. But we practiced, drilled all the time. I would kick in their door at night, and they knew exactly what to do. We practiced. I said, car drives up, 4 guys jump out. What are you doing? Where are you going? They had these routes where they would go. Like, we practiced all the time. We're not stupid.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing where people you can ask God, like, hey, take my fear away, and yes, he can do that. But at the same time, it's also on you to have the onus to, you need to train to protect yourself. That does not mean, I got you and just do whatever you want. It's exactly. No, you are still in charge of your own, destiny in some form or fashion, right? God is protecting you, but if you're not taking the steps to protect yourself, then God's like, hey, I'm giving you everything that you need to protect yourself, a brain to critically think. Yeah. Don't just think that I got it from here, and I can,
that's not even smart. And then it helps take away fear. When they realize, okay, there's things we can do. Here's what we do, and it helps take away their fear, because it's not this unknown. It's like, this is what happened. Plus, they knew who on our team were killed. They knew that they were there when that happened, and they understood the reality of that. And and so they just grew up in the environment where, this isn't the end. These are, there's things we could do. I love Colossians 1:28 and 29, where Paul says, I labor according to his power, which vitally works in me. It's like this. Yeah, man, there's stuff we can do and train and get smart and don't be stupid. And the old joke, the guys whose ship sinks and they're in they end up in a rowboat, and they said, should we pray or row? It's like both. You do both. You pray and you row. So it's you call out to the Lord. You give your fear to Him all the time, and then He gives you wisdom.
Yeah,
like, be here, do this, don't. So there's times we did things that were, we got abducted once as a family, and split up by two groups in two different masked, armed guys in two different vehicles, and they took my wife and two kids and me and another guy in another car. You get into those situations, and the same thing. It's just like, okay, we're in it, and we're just you got to stay in the present tense.
Yeah.
Like if you get 3 minutes ahead of what you think might happen, you're in. Yeah. You start not paying attention to the situation, and you start, making mistakes, and so. Well,
if guys want to, and I know you. What's really cool is all this experience has led to where you're at now, and I think some of your biggest work's yet to come. Even and if guys are like, man, I'm really struggling with just being run by fear and my identities and everything else. We have a lot of military people that follow our podcast too. If they're going, man, who I am is a Navy SEAL or Green Beret or whatever. They're going, I need to begin to break out of that. What would you suggest? Your book? Is it Living Fearless?
Book, our website, identityexchange.com. There's a 21-day free thing called Finding Hope that we were asked to do by a mental health company for their clients, and so we did it, and then we just put it out for free. That's a great one.
Okay.
Just to walk through. It's just short, 10-minute little talk, and then a prayer practice. Yeah, all of those resources are on our website, identityexchange.com. Yeah, for anyone really.
Yeah. Okay. Make sure we put those below. So
we'll put a link.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all your experience.
Dude, this was I really enjoyed talking to you and listening to you, and just your whole perspective of the humanizing everybody, right? Because I think that's the hardest thing to do in this day and age, is to look at other individuals, especially if it doesn't matter if they're in another country or whatever, different skin colors and all that. We're told as a society to put people in groups and to profile people. And in reality, it's like that's not how Jesus looked at everybody. It was Jesus looked at everybody as a human being who we all suffer from the same exact things, just because we're living on two different ends of the planet.
Right.
I hope continuing going forward, you keep doing good work. And,
thank you.
Yeah, spreading that message.
Yeah, thank you. For just because of your history and background, it's like our backgrounds are so valuable. Even when Saul of Tarsus, meets Jesus on the Damascus Road, none of his past is wasted. It's all he now realizes, oh my gosh, that's why I have all this training and all that I do. I was using it for this, but it's actually I can be used this way. And so all of our history and all of our vocational expertise and all of it, once you give it to Christ, He doesn't erase it. He's like, I'll make that whole thing redemptive, which is the most amazing part of it. That's why our past doesn't condemn us. Yeah. It's like, we trained for this, and then all that training all of a sudden can be used in this way. It's incredibly valuable.
Yeah. It magnifies it.
Yeah. And so,
you've probably helped more people since you've been out.
Yeah. Imagine.
Maybe. Yeah. And again, it's the same thing. Like, you just ask God to hey, direct me in the path that, all the things that I've accumulated over my career and all the things, there's some things. I was talking to some guys last week that I was, we put on trainings and everything, and they come from the same background, and they're like, dude, nothing and there's some truth, like a lot of the things that we did are not transferable. Right. Yeah, right. And I'm like, yes, like if you want to look at
CQB,
we're good at killing people, hunting down and killing people or capturing them. I'm like, when you get out, there's really not a lot of work in that. Right. But I'm like, there's so many other things that our job, our past career had, that like skill sets, mental skill sets, that we can pass on. That stuff is transferable to other people. Yes, you just have to change your perspective on how you can transfer those skill sets to other individuals and help them out. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be all about combat and killing and this and that. there's other ways to, transfer those skills.
And your path to getting healthy. I think that's one of your biggest.
Yeah. Well, and that just boils down to resilience,
Yeah.
right? It's like being resilient and trying and not stopping. And because it's very easy to be able to get stuck, like you said, and it's all fear based. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm no longer, Greenberry SEAL, cop, whatever. And it's easy to get stuck in that. But if you are, like you said, trying to be resilient, well-rounded, then Jesus will help you, but you have to be stepping forward.
That's right.
That is the willingness to keep stepping forward and getting better.
And your background is like you're an expert in stepping forward. Yeah. It's super interesting, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's stepping forward without I don't care.
I didn't say it was always good. Yeah, right. Yeah, but no, I was with a guy one time. We were in a pretty tense situation overseas, and he was from a similar background as you, and he the situation we were in, I knew that he could take care of the whole situation by himself. If he wanted to, he could end the whole situation. But it wasn't like the right thing to do. And I kept looking at him like, don't do what you're really good at right now. Don't. And he went to the guy that was threatening us because it was, and he said to him, it was funny how he goes, I just want you to know that my professional skill is killing people. That's what he said to the guy. He goes, except, and that's normally what I would do in a situation like that we're in right now. He said, except I have a way to ask God what he would do in this situation. So instead of doing what I want to do in this situation, I'm asking. And it was because it put those guys on notice. But then he said, but I'm asking him what he wants to do. And this is what he wants to do. And what he wants to do is take away your fear. And I can also help take away your fear. So I'm going to go with that one. But I just want you to know, it's not my first.
I got two ways of taking away.
That's right. And it was so beautiful.
Option A or option B.
And see, I could have never said something like that. Yeah. But he could say that, and it was really beautiful how he said it. So that's
said it like Liam Neeson. It's like, I got a very particular set of skills.
Yeah.
But to see a person set aside that option.
Yeah,
for this is super powerful, right?
That is powerful.
Really powerful. And there's so many vets that are so suicidal, man, and just really struggling with identity.
Yeah,
I mean that's been their whole identity. And Eddie's path to health is like, I mean he's done everything. He'll tell you his consistent thing was getting up every morning and spend some time with God.
Yeah,
right. That's been the backbone of everything. Yeah. But I mean everything from ibogaine or ayahuasca.
Ibogaine. I've done the buffet.
Stem cells to working out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean you have to tell me about that sometime because I'm.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot like I don't want to get into it because it'll be another hour podcast.
I know, that's what I mean. I'd love to hear that.
Sort of what you're talking about, the stripping away the fear, stripping away like, hey, this is why you are the way you are. Yeah. Is what ibogaine does for you. It's a most powerful psychedelic that you can do, and it's not fun. It's a 12-hour intense experience, but what it really does is exposes the fears that you have, and it shows you like this is why you are the way that you are, and it'll take you back to childhood, and it will show you like this is where you were told you were ugly, or this is where you were told you don't matter. Wow. This is where you're in. This is where you started building up your defense mechanisms or your ego to become what you are now, and so it helps guys sort of strip away all that, just like you said, and realize, I'm a human being and I'm imperfect. I'm not, this big, strong SEAL or whatever that I've been portraying this whole time.
Yeah.
And so it really helps guys like break themselves down to the basic human form and then be able to go forward. Because I think, like we talked about, a lot of guys from our profession or from law enforcement or whatever, and I think the harder it is to be getting into a certain profession, like, being in special operations, you have to go through a gauntlet where you really you give everything that you have, heart, mind, body, and soul. And so once you do that and you make it into that certain group, it's a lot harder to strip that away you get out, because it's like, I have sacrificed so much to become this, but it's like, that's not who you are. And so that's a lot of the guys have a hard time, getting back to who they are. But with that ibogaine, that psychedelic, what it does is it helps them. They call it's like 20 or it's like 50 years of therapy in 12 hours.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it breaks it down quick.
No.
Interesting. Wow.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Jamie.
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have to.
really great. Yeah, hopefully we'll have you back too at some point.
Yeah, I would love it.
Awesome.
All right.
Out.
Out.